Hi, it's been a while. Now you might be wondering what I've been up to since the last time I made one of these. Well, for starters, I just graduated from college, and now I'm unemployed. That's right, I've reached that phase every Gen Zer goes through when they graduate, where they compete in a job market that's been dominated by AI, and also suffer an existential crisis along the way. Oh, and if I look different, it's because I took Natsumi back and shot her. Yeah, she's gone. You see, I've been dealing with a massive creative burnout since last year, and every time I tried making a new video essay, I just give up halfway through. I tried to make a video on K-pop Demon Hunters last year, but then it got way too popular for its own good, and everyone wouldn't shut up about it. I think it was on my 251st listen of Golden when I realized a small YouTuber like me didn't have a chance. So while I apply for like a billion companies and hope they think I'm cool enough to join the workforce, I also watched a lot of stuff this year, and I want to share my thoughts on them in this one convenient package of a video. So I'll be going through every movie and show I've seen in the first half of 2026, based on the month I watched them, and also show the ratings I gave them on Letterboxd if applicable. I am definitely not running out of video ideas. I promise. Kicking off the new year, we have... oh, for fuck's sake. So let me explain. I was in New York with my family last Christmas, and going home, we boarded this 17-hour flight from New York to Taipei. This was one of the movies our plane had as entertainment, and yep, I think this is the best way to watch Tron Ares. It is the most airplane movie you could possibly watch. They wasted an entire Nine Inch Nails album on this. I can only hope they gave Trent Reznor a big fat paycheck, because Tron Ares is a much better movie if you only hear the soundtrack and imagine the movie in your head as you listen along. They managed to make an even more boring version of Black Adam if that was even possible. If this movie's box office failure guarantees anything, it's that we won't get another Tron movie ever again, and it might actually be legit this time around. Fuck you, Jared Leto, you smelly loser. I also watched all the Harry Potter movies for the first time. I'm not counting the first two since I watched those last December, and I'm only counting the movies I watched in January, so basically the rest of the movies. So I have this tradition every Christmas, where I marathon a popular movie franchise. For the last 2 years, I did Mission Impossible and Terminator, and this time I went with Harry Potter because everyone in my family has seen these movies except for me. I was more of a sci-fi person growing up, and after seeing these movies, yeah, I still prefer sci-fi. Sorry. Although Prisoner of Azkaban, Order of the Phoenix, and Deathly Hallows Part 2 are great, these movies simply aren't for me. I think Harry Potter has been massively influential in modern fantasy media. If you're watching something that has wizards or magic, chances are it's inspired by Harry Potter to some extent. But I also feel like they do this kind of story a lot better than Harry Potter does it. Maybe it's because I watch these jet-lagged, but marathoning all of these movies in one go felt like a chore. It's not that I hate these movies or anything, they have their moments. But I think my biggest problem with Harry Potter is that compared to other fantasy media I've watched, this one is just too normal. This really is the most boring fantasy story you could write. I think the most intrigued I've been with these movies was when they killed off Robert Pattinson in Goblet of Fire. Admittedly, I did not read the books before seeing these movies, and I am still not interested in reading them now. Maybe they're better, I don't know, and I don't care. I did not watch the Fantastic Beasts prequels afterwards because I just did not want to give this transphobe any more of my time and attention. I also think the HBO reboot looks funny. I guess it was only a matter of time before Harry Potter had its own Amazing Spider-Man. Watching all the Harry Potter movies in one go just made me want to rewatch Kiki's Delivery Service, and that's exactly what I did. This is how you do a coming-of-age story about a cute kid with magic powers. It's simple, and doesn't have a lot much going on. It's mostly Kiki just delivering packages around the city, but the way it's presented makes it so much better than those Harry Potter movies. This is my second favorite Ghibli film, only behind Whisper of the Heart, that just so happens to be a cautionary tale about using your hobbies as a source of income and the burnout and the social isolation that comes with it. Now do you see why I don't monetize my videos? This was the first movie I saw in theaters this year, and I gotta say that January horror movies have come a long way.
Don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it!
I really enjoyed 28 Years Later, and I would say that I liked this one just as much. Jack O'Connell is just as bonkers in this movie as he was in Sinners, but it is really Ralph Fiennes who steals the show. That Iron Maiden sequence is one of the most metal things I have seen in a really long time, and you can tell that he had a lot of fun filming this particular sequence. I really hope that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland will still be able to complete their 28 Days Later Legacy sequel trilogy, even if the box office for this says otherwise. I also watched all of the Phase 1 Marvel movies for like the 18th time. I have a lot to say about these movies, but I can't really do that until the MCU retrospective video, so sadly you'll have to wait for that. Until then, all I can really say is these early Marvel movies still hold up. These definitely feel more movie-like compared to the slop they make now. Does that mean they're better than we remember them to be? Well, it depends on what movie we're referring to. So, as if Kiki's Delivery Service wasn't enough, rewatching these movies just made me hate those Harry Potter movies even more. The first few minutes of Fellowship are so much better than all 8 of those movies. It shouldn't even be a contest. Every single thing about these movies is perfect. Every line of dialogue sounds like the hardest thing ever written. It has the perfect mix of CGI and practical effects, some of which still look amazing all these years later. And all of these movies have some of the greatest battle sequences ever put to film. It's almost to a point where I don't even know what to say that hasn't been already said about these movies. To point out a flaw in any of these movies feels sacrilegious to me. Okay, maybe Frodo's kind of a weakling who has to rely on Sam all the time, but that's kind of it. I haven't seen those Hobbit movies since they came out, and I haven't seen Rings of Power either, and at this point I am too scared to touch them out of fear of having this trilogy ruined for me. Wonder Man is the best MCU TV show on Disney+, simply because it actually feels like a TV show. It took them long enough. Yes, even better than Born Again. I said what I said. The two main leads and their chemistry are, I think, what really makes the show work. Yes, believe it or not, Trevor fucking Slattery has a better character arc than most MCU characters post-Endgame. What are we even doing anymore? And even when you take out all the superhero stuff, this simply is a charming love letter to acting. It does for the craft what Look Back did for drawing. I think DDC's MCU projects are very similar to what James Gunn did with his Guardians films, with the way he takes these lesser-known Marvel characters and makes them compelling and relatable in their own silly little ways. That said, I can't think of a better filmmaker to handle MCU Spider-Man right now. Brand New Day looks so good, it makes those John Watts movies look so much worse than they already did. I also watched The Studio right after Wonder Man. This is also a charming love letter to Hollywood, flaws and all. For almost 20 years, everyone thinks of Seth Rogen as the funny weed guy with a funny laugh, and he's produced lots of great projects like Invincible and the new Muppet Show special to prove them all wrong. And I think The Studio is yet another one of these projects. For a comedy show, the cinematography and lighting have no right being as good as they are. There's an entire episode dedicated to Oners, and it's one of the funniest episodes I've ever seen. And my god, all the cameo appearances are so good. I am shocked that some of these even agreed to be in a show like this. It's the best use of celebrity cameos in any piece of media I can think of. Sam Raimi is one of my favorite filmmakers. Not only do I love his Spider-Man trilogy, but I also love his Evil Dead movies, and Darkman is hysterically underrated. So it warms my heart that he's still doing movies like this in the Big 26. I had a lot of fun seeing this in a theater, and I hope he continues to make more movies like this. God bless this silly little man. Aqua documentary. I also saw this one in theaters, and this was maybe the saddest movie-going experience I have ever had, because I was the only one in a big-ass cinema watching the Aqua Say You Do cry face. It's like that one scene in Lego Batman, but in real life. I think this was the moment that my time had passed as a Love Live fan, and that I needed to move on to other things. I'm still kind of surprised at just how honest this documentary gets. There's a lot this gets away with, even by the standards of a documentary centered around Japanese idols. Had this been about AKB, they would have sugarcoated the shit out of this, Michael style. Really, my biggest complaint is that it focuses a bit too much on Anchan and Rikyako. Arisha and Anya barely get any screen time. Maybe because they didn't have much to add or their stuff got left on the cutting room floor. This was one of two movies I watched to prepare for this year's Oscar ceremony. I'd been wanting to watch this one for quite some time because of just how aggressive the marketing campaign for this was, even if Timothée Chalamet kind of fucked up near the end, waging a one-man war against ballet and opera fans across the globe. There is no doubt that this is one of his best performances. He does an excellent job portraying this stubborn asshole who dreams of becoming what I could only describe as the Lionel Messi of ping pong, but he ends up more like the Roy Keane of that sport. And this framing of 2020's hustler culture through the 1950s set to 80s music needle drops, I think is very genius. I am so glad I don't have to associate that Tears for Fears song with Skibidi Toilet anymore. I also love how the movie's humor comes from treating ping pong like it's the most important sport in the world, very in line with our anti-hero's mindset. And even if Marty's clearly a massive piece of shit who's constantly way over his head, you're still rooting for him in that climactic ping pong match near the end. It's a shame this didn't win any Oscars, but I've never seen a movie more fitting to come home empty-handed. I also really liked Begonia. I love how cold and mean-spirited it is. I still like Poor Things more, and I've still yet to watch Kinds of Kindness and all his other stuff, but I can definitely say that this is Yorgos Lanthimos at his most restrained. Not to spoil much, but this has one of the bleakest movie endings I have seen in quite some time. As great as Emma Stone is in this, I think Jesse Plemons deserves the same flowers. It's cool to see him in a lead role and just have this batshit insane acting chops on full display. And I'm kind of shocked that he wasn't nominated for an Oscar on this. What the actual fuck? Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are some of my favorite filmmakers ever. For those who don't know, they're the main guys behind the Spider-Verse movies and the Lego movie. They also directed these movies, which I saw in anticipation of Project Hail Mary, partly because it was the first movie they directed in over 12 years. My name's Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
These two Jump Street movies are probably my favorite comedy movies of the 2010s, mostly because they have such a unique creative energy that you don't see much of within this genre anymore. In fact, before Barbie, 22 Jump Street was widely considered to be the last great mainstream comedy that had any impact on pop culture whatsoever. My name's Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
I also watched the first Ted movie because Twitter wouldn't shut up about the TV show. I have not seen it yet, other than this scene and the Bill Clinton deepfake, but I've heard it's 1,000 times better than these movies. And you know what? That's kind of true. If you cut out the talking CGI teddy bear, all you have left is a lame rom-com about Mark Wahlberg trying to bang Meg from Family Guy. Holy shit, that's Ryan Reynolds. I don't really like Mark Wahlberg as an actor or as a person, but thankfully, this is one of his better comedic performances. Not that it's a high bar to clear. I'd been meaning to watch this one for many years, but I only got to it after one battle after another won Best Picture. When people consider this to be Daniel Day-Lewis's best performance, I would not argue with them one bit. Daniel Plainview is one of the most morally complex main characters I've ever seen in a movie. As funny as that milkshake quote is out of context, the way he delivers it in such a boastful and resentful way tells you everything you need to know about him and the overall tone of the film. Paul Dano is also so good in this, and I cannot believe Quentin Tarantino looked at this and had the balls to call him a bad actor. Maybe because he always got his shit rocked, I don't know. I also think that Johnny Greenwood's score is excellent, especially in those first 10 minutes where there's no dialogue. Yeah, it's a near perfect movie, and I love it just as much as one battle after another. Lots of my favorite YouTubers have been glazing this movie to no end, so I felt intrigued to see if it was as peak as everyone says it is. Funny enough, I first heard about this show years ago through YMS, and seeing just how big of a deal this movie was finally made me cave in. I am shocked at just how much Matt and Jay get away with in this movie, from the use of copyrighted music to that insane stunt where they try to jump off the CN Tower. It also seamlessly ties together footage they filmed for the movie and unused footage from the web series. There was clearly a lot of work that went into recreating 2008 Toronto to the point where it almost makes you believe that they actually traveled back in time. Yet somehow the time travel in this movie still makes more sense than the Tomorrow War.
Hey, I can fly!
I am so glad I saw this in the theater, and even more glad that this movie's success allowed original movies to flourish again. Yes, I know it's based on a book, but I don't give a shit. I'm pretty sure half the people who saw this didn't even read the book beforehand, so it's probably fine. This really showcases Lord & Miller's filmmaking talents on full display, from colorful visuals to lovable weirdos. This solidifies Greg Fraser as the closest we'll ever have to a cinematographer as good as Roger Deakins, and I am so pissed that he'll be stuck in Beatles jail for a while. This is also one of Ryan Gosling's best roles, and I'm really glad his lighter comedic roles this decade are just as good as the darker ones he did back in the 2010s. Looking back, I'd say The Nice Guys really was a turning point for his career. I also liked the funny faceless rock alien that was named after me.
Amazing.
I remember watching this movie as a kid, and this was when I realized that movies could actually be terrible. But I am an adult now, and there was a new Mario movie coming out this year, so I gave this another shot to see if my thoughts had changed, especially now that this is a cult classic for some reason. Yeah, I don't get it either. I think even if you see this as its own thing, this is just way too dark and mean-spirited to even be associated with the Mario brand. If you showed the strip club scene to a Mario fan now, it would kill them. This movie is so bad that the most fun part about it was the fact that nobody had fun making this. Apparently Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo were drunk all throughout filming, and the directors just didn't give a shit. Yeah, that sounds about right. This movie was so bad that I put on the new one afterwards to see if this was any better, and it wasn't. I already talked about this years ago, but I honestly don't like this movie as much as I did when it first came out. I think this movie is also just as bad as the live-action film, but in a different way. Whereas that one had so much contempt and disrespect towards its source material, this one has way too much love and respect for the Mario franchise. This feels more like a 90-minute Nintendo commercial than an actual movie. I think knowing all the references just makes the experience so much worse, because now there's just not much left to discover here. There's barely a story, and even if the movie tries to have one, it will instantly move on to the next scene without any hesitation. The pacing of this movie gives Chainsaw Man a run for its money. The voice acting at the very least is decent, except Chris Pratt, who is barely even trying.
He's so cool.
I genuinely do not like his Mario very much, and I don't think I'm alone with that sentiment.
Koopas!
And then you have Mario Galaxy, which is just the first movie on steroids. Remember those parody movies from the 2000s that were full of references standing in as jokes? This is like if one of those movies took those references 100% seriously. The story feels too bloated and unfocused, even if this movie tries to focus more on having one this time around. And as a result of that, the pacing is so much worse, actively hurting any character development or screen time for that matter. Rosalina is a central character of the Mario Galaxy games, and I completely forgot that she was in this. Mario himself doesn't get much of an arc this time around, other than like being a simp for Princess Peach. He's also kind of an asshole.
The criticism I'd give you is it's trash.
Look, Mario can have a bit of sass every once in a while, sure.
Sounds green with envy, huh? Get it? He wears green.
Gee, that's funny.
But I prefer when Mario is a tiny ball of sunshine with a mustache who loves to go on wacky adventures. But here, he tries to kill Bowser on like 2 separate occasions, and I just don't think these are things Mario would do. That's just me though. I also think it's dumb that they would tease Yoshi at the end of the first movie, only to give him nothing to do outside of the first act. He's more like the iguana from Tangled, who sometimes uses his tongue to swing around like Spider-Man. And that's about it. What a massive waste of Donald Glover, man. I guess the closest this movie gets to a fully established arc is Bowser's. There's a part in this movie where the Queen Bee threatens to enslave the Mario Brothers for trashing her kingdom, but then Bowser takes their place at the last minute. And considering Bowser's typically the final boss in the mainline Mario games, you'd think that this would be an interesting direction to take with one of the most iconic villains in video game history. But no, he just suddenly decides he wants to be evil again, because this movie needs a main bad guy, and Bowser Jr. is not good enough to fill that role. At least it looks pretty. This is definitely one of Illumination's better looking movies, but when the visuals are the best thing about your movie, usually that's not a very good sign. As a fan of the Mario games, I really did not like these movies, and I never want to watch them ever again. Very underrated romantic comedy from the Little Miss Sunshine filmmakers. The plot of this one is that Paul Dano is this writer who is suffering from writer's block, so he gets this assignment from his therapist to write whatever's off the top of his head. So then he's just like, screw it, I'm just gonna make an OC and get this over with. And then she comes to life the very next day, and now Paul Dano's got his very own waifu. He's also pretty bad with women.
You weren't curious about me, you never were. You just had this image of who I was, and anything that I did that contradicted it, you just ignored.
What image? The one where you left me as soon as I wasn't successful?
He doesn't get his ass beaten in this one, but you'll wish he really did. Especially if you're Tarantino. I watched the Nirvana the Band show sometime after watching the movie, and I would say that this is one of my favorite watches of the year.
Stop. Jared, help me. And his name is John Cena!
Every episode follows the same beats as the movie. Matt and Jay try to get a show in the Rivoli in the most ridiculous ways possible, whether it's doing some Indiana Jones style treasure hunt or winning a GoldenEye competition on drugs. Many of the stunts they pull off in this show are unscripted and have real reactions, similar to that of other public prank shows, except this one is actually funny and they don't harass other people for their own entertainment.
It's just a prank, bro.
It also has some of the best pop culture references I've seen in the show since Community. This show has one of the best Star Wars jokes I've ever heard in my life, and it centers on Matt having not seen any of the movies beforehand. There's a whole episode where he marathons the original movies in one sitting and ends up blind for like 48 hours because he sat way too close to the TV for too long. So when he attends the Force Awakens screening with Jay, he has to have the whole movie explained to him, and it's just pissing off the entire audience. When they say Star Wars movies used to feel like events, this is exactly what they meant. Disney did not know what they had until it was gone. The whole episode is a Daredevil parody, by the way. But my personal favorite one, I think, is the one where Matt and Jay try to get on the Toronto Maple Leafs kiss cam with the plan to use that as a publicity stunt to get them a show at the Rivoli. And when that doesn't work, Matt tries out this Wahlburger, which is like Mark Wahlberg's weird offshoot burger restaurant chain, and he's tricked into thinking that eating these would make his wishes come true.
Magic burger. Magic burger.
So when Matt and Jay do get their shot on the kiss cam, Matt pukes from eating too much Wahlburgers. I mean, yeah, if I was forced to kiss my best friend on national television, I think you'll just have to shoot me on the spot, because even without those burgers, no sane person could handle all that gay panic, because it would kill them.
2 guys on the screen. Gay.
Oh, wow. Sports.
The show also has its emotional moments, and when they do, they're genuinely well done. It takes a lot of talent for someone like Matt Johnson to pull off serious drama just as well as silly comedy. Every episode also pays homage to a movie or a show they like, and the effort they put into recreating them adds a lot to this show's charm. This is the best way to do pop culture references, and I truly wish more creators would take note of this. If you love the movie, I definitely recommend checking out the show as well. I still haven't watched the original web show, but I've heard good things about it, so I also might give that a shot one of these days. I was craving some early 2000s cheese, and this movie gave me exactly that. They just don't make them like they used to. Yeah, this movie is basically like if they mixed EOW and Terminator in an early 2000s time capsule. It's a fun watch when they don't bog you down with boring multiverse mumbo jumbo. It's also weird to see Jason Statham in a movie where he's acting normal, and he also has hair. That's how you know this movie came out in the early 2000s. This was also cute. Very refreshing to watch a rom-com anime where the characters aren't all high schoolers or whatever. Very reminiscent of classic rom-com movies like Notting Hill. I also love the role reversal in this one, with the girl swooning over the boy instead of how it usually is the other way around. And as someone who watches a lot of rom-com animes, I can easily say that this is one of the more interesting ones to come out in recent years. Now, there were 2 comedy movies with legacy sequels that I watched last May: Happy Gilmore and Devil Wears Prada. I'm mostly going to talk about Happy Gilmore simply because I have more to say about these movies. Some consider this to be their favorite Adam Sandler movie, and I can see why. This is Sandler at his funniest and also his most aggressive.
You're gonna die, clown!
Kinda sad that his later movies don't have the same charm that this one has. I take Shooter McGavin over Rob Schneider any day. That fight scene Sandler has with Bob Barker is hilarious. When you think about it, it's almost the 90s equivalent of the Superman vs. Zod fight from Man of Steel.
The price is wrong, bitch.
Happy Gilmore 2, on the other hand, has Eminem and Taylor Swift's newlywed husband and Sora from Kingdom Hearts. While it isn't as offensively terrible as some of Sandler's worst comedies, it commits the cardinal sin of substituting actual jokes and story with celebrity cameos. Remember when I said the studio had one of the best uses of celebrity cameos, where every single cameo had a purpose in each episode and gave the show's satire of the film industry its much needed bite? Well, Happy Gilmore 2 is the polar opposite of that. At least Bad Bunny's having fun. The funniest thing in this entire movie is that he somehow has better comedic timing than the Sandman himself. Very Free Guy coded movie designed for your annoying coworkers. Skip this one. I'll make this quick because, like I said, there's not really much I can say about these movies. I think the first one is a modern classic. That Cerulean Sweater Rant is one of my favorite scenes in any comedy movie, and I think Nigel is the unsung hero of these movies, but that's kind of it. I think the second one is one of the better legacy sequels to come out this decade, with its commentary on the rise of AI and the death of print media being very timely and well explored. There's a lot to love about Spider-Man 2, but what I personally love about it is its perfect balance between comic book silliness and grounded human drama. This is a winning formula that superhero movies have tried to replicate since, with varying results. Also, the fact that this movie has such a distinct style. Sam Raimi is basically his own genre, to the point where there aren't really lots of superhero movies that look like this. Spider-Man 2 also has some of the best life lessons you could learn from any superhero movie. It solidifies why people like myself consider Spider-Man to be their favorite superhero, and it's his resilience in a world where he's constantly treated like shit and things don't always go the way he wants them to. Really, I think the Spider-Verse movies are the closest these movies have ever gotten to recapturing that essence of Spider-Man's character. This is a strong contender for the best superhero movie ever made, and I'd even go as far to say that this is a better superhero movie than The Dark Knight. I don't even know why I watched this. This is basically Your Name without the sauce. And then if that's not enough, they have the balls to rip off Hoppers and Princess Mononoke near the end. The voice acting is also terrible. This was Michael B. Jordan's first role after his Oscar win.
You're using that word again, home. What do you mean, home?
Do not watch this movie. It sucks. Go watch Your Name again. It's better. Oh boy, this is a big one. I was hyped for this movie long before it came out, and I'm really glad it took the world by storm. I can tell it's a huge success because film Twitter is full of bad takes about this movie right now. It's only a matter of time before we get Funko Pops for Bear and Nikki, like how it was with K-pop Demon Hunters and Squid Game. And there it is. I saw this movie twice, one with my friends and another in a packed cinema. And I gotta say that both were some of the most fun experiences watching a movie all decade. You see, theaters here in my country are usually pretty quiet. We didn't clap during the portal scene in Endgame, and we didn't go bonkers during Minecraft Chicken Jockey. But when we got to that scene, everyone was just like... While this isn't technically Curry Barker's first feature-length horror movie, I gotta say that he really hit the ground running with his theatrical debut. As a YouTuber myself, I think it's crazy that we've lived long enough to witness this new wave of YouTubers making it big in Hollywood, and horror really seems to be the best genre to establish themselves as filmmakers in their own right. Most likely because if a YouTuber were to make their own space opera, it would be way too expensive to make. I really like how morally gray everybody is.
I wish for $1 billion.
To the point where the nicest character in the whole movie is the one that goes through the worst shit. Indy Navarrete is so good in this, that if she doesn't win an Oscar, or if I don't see her in any more stuff in the future, then we truly would have failed as a society. Also, at this point, if you don't see Bear as the real villain of this movie, then you are an idiot, and I don't like you. It also has the best use of lighting I've seen in a movie like this in quite a while. There's a scene where Nikki's eyes are shining, and whether or not it was intentional, I'm shocked that they were able to pull off something like that. There's another scene where Nikki is crawled up in the corner crying, and it was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt in a theater. Only rivaled by when I saw the Snow White remake on opening weekend. This really is one of the best horror movies of the decade. We really need more movies like this right now, and this movie making almost $500 million has proven that. I watched this one as a pick-me-up after the insanity that was Obsession, which is funny because Blackberry is also insane in its own way. Also directed by Matt Johnson, this is essentially a biopic about the rise and fall of that one phone E.L. James wrote 50 Shades of Grey on.
I used to write a lot of it on my way to work.
Really?
Yeah, on my BlackBerry.
You wrote it on your BlackBerry?
Yeah,
and it really captures the importance of BlackBerry's influence on the phone industry, as well as the time periods when this company felt like they could do no wrong. Glenn Howerton is really good in this movie, and he has a line delivery near the end that I think is just as insane as that vampire's line in Marty Supreme.
I'm from Waterloo, where the vampires hang out!
Matt Johnson's penchant for balancing silly comedy and serious drama really shines through in this. He also shows up a lot in the first half, and I find it funny that the one character he plays that isn't named Matt just so happens to be the most Matt Johnson character he could possibly play.
Emergency movie night, right now, Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark, Letterboxd.
If there's any movie that really put him on the map, I think this is the one, and I'm very excited for his Anthony Bourdain biopic that's also coming out later this year. My best friend and I have been big fans of The Boys since its 3rd season, and after the letdown that was the 4th season, I was hoping that this 5th and final season would pick things up and give us the satisfying conclusion that this show rightfully deserved. This is somehow more boring than the 4th season. I don't know how Eric Kripke did it, but he found a way. The absolute madman. Now, I won't lie, the first 2 episodes showed a lot of promise, but then the rest of the season went deep into random bullshit, like setup for the inevitable prequel show cash grab, Homelander getting roasted by just about everybody, an out-of-place Supernatural reunion, a plot thread about an old version of Compound V that ultimately goes nowhere, some of the most anticlimactic character deaths in TV history, and really just not doing much with Soldier Boy. Sad to see my favorite character in the show go out like this. And you'd think this would all be worth it leading up to the finale, but if you ask me, I don't really think it was. In the final episode, Billy finally kills Homelander in the White House, and then he dies. Also, Kimiko saw a vision of Frenchie before depowering Homelander with the power of love or something, I don't know. The fact that this season is asking you to care about a Zionist really says a lot about just how much this show has dipped in quality since season 3. It's like only Vince Gilligan knows how to write proper final seasons to shows everybody loves. It's not Game of Thrones season 8 levels of bad, but as longtime fans of The Boys, there's truly no reason we can't ask for better than this, right? After all, it's what Clara would have wanted. I've never watched the He-Man cartoon. Honestly, I don't think anyone in my generation has. Our only exposure to the cartoon was through the hey meme. Let's be honest, no one ever expected this to be good. So the movie being as decent as it is kind of an achievement. This very much feels like a movie that would have done better if it came out 10 years prior. The visual language is very inconsistent. Sometimes Travis Knight's animation experience shines through bright colors and cool looking sets, and other times, it's just the same green screen sets that we've grown tired of by this point. It's very much trying to be like Thor Ragnarok, except we've already grown tired of movies like that. So not only is the humor very hit or miss, but sometimes it also feels like the filmmakers are ashamed of how campy the source material is, so they have to resort to poking fun at how stupid all of this is every few minutes or so. I am so tired of this insincerity in my IP slop. And even though I just called Jared Leto a smelly loser at the beginning of this video, I really hate how good his Skeletor is. This is his best performance since maybe Requiem for a Dream, and he nails Skeletor as this sinister force of evil, who can be a bit of a diva sometimes. He's basically unrecognizable as Skeletor, and it helps that he was locked away for the entire press tour. Too bad it wasn't enough for Jared to beat the box office poison allegations. But even without Jared, considering how the general public couldn't give less of a shit about He-Man in the Big 26, this movie never really stood a chance. But our boy Travis isn't done yet, because he's got a much better movie coming out this year worth looking forward to. The blend of live action and animation still holds up after all these years, and it helps that this is really just one feature-length love letter to the golden age of animation. In fact, this movie's success is the reason why the Disney Renaissance happened the way it did. Really makes you miss the days when Robert Zemeckis knew how to make movies. I have a soft spot for these first 4 scary movies, so I was kinda excited for this one, considering the huge renaissance horror movies seem to be having this decade. I was actually interested to see all these modern horror classics like Sinners and The Substance get the Scary Movie treatment, and with the Wayans brothers back in the helm for the first time since Scary Movie 2, I was very much ready for this franchise to make a comeback. Sadly, it was less interested in poking fun at recent horror movies than it was offending everybody, which is ironic because the most offensive thing about this movie is that it wasn't offensive enough. While it isn't as bad as 5, all I can really say is that the only thing worse than a comedy movie that's not funny is a comedy movie that's painfully boring. And the new Scary Movie is painfully boring. Biggest letdown of the year in my personal opinion. I guess if you're a Michael Jackson fan, you'll like this, because a lot of them sure did, but I've seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I can smell through the bullshit and lies. The way it crams so much of Michael Jackson's life in 2 hours makes me feel like this would have worked so much better as a TV show, or if it just simply focused on his creative process making Thriller. I think Michael Jackson is a very complex celebrity, and there's so much stuff his estate didn't want to be shown in a film like this. So it's rather unfortunate that this is the best they could do with all the obstacles they had to face during production. That would have been fine if this movie was at least visually interesting, but it isn't. These are the most boring ways you could recreate some of MJ's most iconic onstage performances. Elvis, Rocketman, and Better Man actually did something interesting with the musical performances, whether it's framing them like actual musical numbers or big budget TikTok fan cam edits. Hell, the recreation of Live Aid is widely considered to be the best part of Bohemian Rhapsody. So really the performance scenes in Michael have no excuse being as bland and dull as they are. This is a movie, not a documentary, and movies are an audio-visual medium. And with a musician as iconic as Michael Jackson, these scenes do not do his showmanship justice in the slightest. Coleman Domingo looks very funny in this. The shot where his mouth is wide open makes me laugh every time, so at least it has that going for it. The fact that this made $1 billion will only enable more music biopics to leech off of its success, guaranteeing that this subgenre will never do anything interesting or exciting ever again. I am so sorry we failed you, Walcard. X-Men fever has been sweeping the globe, with a new season of X-Men 97, several X-Men characters joining Marvel rivals, and the return of the Fox X-Men in Avengers Doomsday. So that was enough for me to finally check these X-Men movies out. Hot take, but I don't like this original trilogy very much. The first X-Men in particular has aged poorly over the years. This is a rather drab and bland movie where all the fun stuff doesn't happen until they get to the Statue of Liberty.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
X2, on the other hand, I'd say is easily the best of the original trilogy. If you look at this like a feature-length episode of the animated series, your experience watching this movie improves just a little bit.
We love what you've done with your hair.
Hey.
And X-Men The Last Stand is one of the meanest superhero movies I have ever seen.
Why are you doing this to me? Let me down. I'll be a good girl. Please let me go. Please.
Keep it up. I'll spray you in the face, bitch.
This is a masterclass in how not to kill off fan favorite characters. I have never seen a movie that has this much contempt for its source material and anyone who has ever enjoyed it. And the fact that all of these were directed by creeps only makes them age worse over time. X3 was so bad that it just made me rewatch the animated series, and I can safely say that X-Men is one of the few popular superheroes where the animated series is the best adaptation of these characters. These movies did Cyclops and Rogue so fucking dirty, oh my god. I haven't seen the original trilogy in a long while, and I've never seen 4, so I don't know how this holds up compared with the others. I honestly couldn't care any less to talk about this. All I know for sure is that this will inevitably make $1 billion because we are all idiots. But at least it was worth it seeing Conan O'Brien on the big screen. I also finally caved into the masses and checked out The Amazing Digital Circus. My stupid brain keeps mixing this with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I don't know why. This show is...
Not for me, man.
You can actually graph my enjoyment of this show on a curve. The first 3 episodes are decent, 4 to 6 is when the show really hits its stride, and then it completely craps the bed in the last 3. I think the show's at its best when everyone's just goofing off, because when it gets serious, it's just done horribly. And Digital Circus likes to get serious. Like, a lot. The philosophical and psychological themes of this show feel like they were written by somebody who's interested in these concepts, but never actually bothered to invest their time and energy studying them. The psychodrama in this show is about as subtle as the biblical allegories in those Zack Snyder DC movies. It's so shallow and surface level, and they beat you over the head with it a lot. And the fact that it's such a major focus in those last 3 episodes really kneecaps any appreciation I could ever have of this show. I think it's funny that most of the finale was dedicated to Jax's backstory. That'd be like if Harry killed Voldemort in Half-Blood Prince, and then for most of Deathly Hallows, it's just Harry learning about Snape's backstory through that magic cauldron before everybody leaves Hogwarts. It's not as bad as everyone says it is, but it's very clear that Gooseworks did not want to keep doing this show for the rest of her life, so she pulled the plug right when it got interesting. That Stevie Wonder needle drop is incredibly out of place, and I do not understand why this was chosen to accompany what I think is supposed to be one of the most important scenes in the whole show. This is an upbeat ode to the birth of Stevie Wonder's daughter. Not a song you'd play when someone is fucking dying. I think the animation is maybe the best part about this whole thing. Quality-wise, this is like a huge step up when you compare this to SMG4's prior work. Everything looks so bright and colorful, the movement is very smooth. It adds to the whole quirky vibe I think the show is trying to go for. I also find the characters very likable for the most part. I like Gangle the most, even though I didn't like that part in the fast food episode where she called out aspiring webcomic creators like myself.
I don't want a career in fast food. I want to be a comic artist and eventually launch my own manga-inspired webcomic. And it's cool to have dreams, but you also need to remember that they're completely unrealistic, and you need to stop trying.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Surprisingly enough, I find Pomni to be the least interesting out of everyone. She's supposed to be like this Bocchi the Rock Kobeni type character, who's like this coward with a heart of gold, but I don't really see much of that throughout this whole show. I really don't get why everyone's thirsting over her either, when Ragatha and Zubul are like, right there. Come on guys, step up your game. Kane is the most punchable guy ever. Every time he showed up or talked, I just felt like beating his perfect white canines to a pulp. I have never wanted to beat up a fictional character more in my life. I now understand how that girl felt with the minions all those years ago. I am not sure what else to say here. This is clearly yet another popular internet thing that just isn't my cup of tea. I like the disappearing guy though. I also watched this as part of my X-Men marathon, and the only reason I'm talking about this one separately is because it's just too good to be roped in with the original trilogy.
Did you just call me Blob?
X-Men Origins Wolverine is one of the funniest superhero movies I have ever seen. You can tell one of the Game of Thrones guys wrote this, because this has some of the most insane dialogue I have ever heard in a major studio blockbuster.
Your country needs you. I'm Canadian.
ChatGPT could not cook up some of these lines. The movie also takes some, let's say, interesting creative choices with popular X-Men characters. Gambit and Deadpool are in this movie, and it was very clear that 2009 Hollywood was not ready to faithfully adapt these characters on the big screen. They made Gambit, this charming Cajun mutant, into this generic American-sounding doofus with zero personality or charisma.
You don't like flying, huh?
I'm fine. Just concentrate on what you're doing.
You sure you got a bit of sweat on your brow there?
Very funny.
Say what you will about Deadpool and Wolverine, but at least people remember that movie's version of Gambit. In fact, Channing Tatum's version was so good, they brought him back for Avengers Doomsday, forever erasing this movie's version of Gambit from public consciousness. And the way this movie butchers Deadpool might be one of the most important moments in comic book movie history, because the negative reception to this iteration of the character, and this movie in general, did lead to those Deadpool movies, for better or worse. The VFX is also so fucking bad, holy shit. Like Quantumania Megalopolis bad. What the fuck is this? Why is the CGI for Wolverine's claws look so much worse than the first 3 X-Men movies? What the fuck is this? What am I looking at? What? Yeah, the only way I'm ever watching this movie again is if I'm drunk with some friends. Honestly, I think the movie would be 10 times better that way. will.i.am is also in this, by the way.
We hunted our own kind, Logan. There's a special place in hell for the things we did.
This movie should be in the Criterion Collection. Yeah, I'll bet some of you didn't even know this came out. But yeah, it did. I was one of the lucky few who got to watch this in theaters. This was a massively disappointing follow-up to last year's Superman. It's a passable popcorn movie you could put on in the background doing chores, which would have been fine 10 years ago. But as the second movie that's trying to establish a new DC cinematic universe in a time where superhero fatigue is at an all-time high, I just don't know why that this is the bar they're setting right now. Millie Alcock and Jason Momoa are trying their best here, but they cannot save the most generic sci-fi script ever put to a film of this scale. You can tell that this was written by somebody who has never written a movie before. She's also writing movies for Wonder Woman and Teen Titans in this universe, by the way. And it doesn't help that the visuals are ugly as shit. And when you compare it to the comic it's based on, it makes the movie look so much worse. And yes, that needle drop is as bad as everyone says it is. And if you ask me, I think it's on the same level as that Stevie Wonder needle drop in Digital Circus. And it's even more offensive to me because I just got into Jimmy Eat World's music this year. And it sucks that this stupid ass needle drop is now a part of their legacy. Clarity is a fantastic album, by the way. The filmmakers are clearly incapable of making a superhero movie, and I find it strange that James Gunn would personally put these people in charge of a movie like this. I just think it's depressing that DC is repeating the same mistakes that caused their first attempt at a cinematic universe to fall apart so quickly, even with allegations that this movie was hurt by studio meddling. All I can really hope is that James Gunn and company will learn the right lessons from this movie's failure, and use them to build the best DC shared universe possible, instead of frantically rushing to make up for their mistakes that caused the DCEU to fail so miserably. When people seem to favor this version of Supergirl over the movie version right now, that's not really a good sign for the DCU's future, in my opinion. I watched this halfway through my X-Men marathon, also I could wash the slop out of my mouth. Also, Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart are in this, so it technically counts as an X-Men movie. I knew we were in for a treat when I first heard that the Chernobyl guy was writing this. The Sheep Detectives proves that Craig Mazin can write cute kids movies just as well as dark prestige TV shows for adults. He's really come a long way from those parody movies he wrote back in the aughts. It also has a very thought-provoking meditation on death that's rarely explored in murder mystery movies like this, let alone one made for children. Also has a good use of its ensemble cast, the voice acting from the Sheep being major standouts. Most people don't know that Bryan Cranston was a prolific voice actor before his breakout roles in Malcolm and Breaking Bad, and even if he isn't in this movie much, it's good to know that he hasn't forgotten his roots. Kind of embarrassing that the CG sheep are more expressive than those live-action Lion King movies. You can thank Tyson Hesse for that, by the way. If that name sounds familiar, he was also responsible for redesigning the live-action Sonic. This is worth a shot if you love murder mysteries, and it should be enough to hold us over until the next Knives Out. I'm including the stuff I watched in the first week of July, even though that's already like way past the first half of the year, because around this time, I started watching a show that's so good, I just have to talk about it. And also because there's no way I'm ending a video like this on Supergirl. I rarely talk about TV shows on this channel, because to put it simply, I'm just not a TV guy. I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad and Community, but that's kind of it. So believe me when I say that out of everything that I have watched in the first half of 2026, this one might be my personal favorite. So anyways, I finally checked out The Owl House. Yep, that's right. This was an elaborate excuse to talk about this show the whole time. I'll also try my best not to spoil as much as I can, since the whole purpose of this is to get you to watch this show. So, I have friends who were big fans of The Owl House while it was on air, and it was not until I was unemployed long enough to finally give this show a shot. I can confidently say, all that hype was completely justified. I'll admit, I'm a bit late to the party. I apologize. In fact, this show is so good that I actually struggled to write down what it was I really liked about it. I did not face this problem with Obsession or Nirvana the band. It took a while to figure out why this show worked for me, aside from the obvious reasons. I can't guarantee I've figured it out, but I'm gonna try my best. To start, the world building is amazing. The art style is also cute and simple, but not bordering on looking bland and on par with other animated shows of this kind. This is definitely pulling a lot from popular fantasy media, most specifically the Harry Potter franchise, but Dana Terrace has built this whole urban fantasy world that feels unique and refreshing compared to other fantasy stories in recent years. I imagine this entire show is what Bright thinks it is.
Fairy lives don't matter today.
And the fight scenes are so fucking cool. Not since the first Doctor Strange movie has finger circle magic looked this good. Luz Naceda is one of my favorite protagonists in all of animation. and I really admire how she embraces her weirdness as a pivotal part of her personality. Early on in the pilot, she mentions AMV editing as one of her favorite pastimes, and that's when I knew I was in for some damn good television.
But I don't like any of that stuff. I like editing anime clips to music and reading fantasy books with convoluted backstories.
She just like me for real. I love how nearly everyone in this show is a flawed, complicated mess, and it makes for some of the most emotionally satisfying character arcs in modern animation. The Owl House is, among other things, a show about change. It's about accepting who you are and learning from your stupid mistakes and insecurities and using those lessons to become better people. And I don't think anyone embodies this more than Amity Blythe. She starts off as this Regina George, Draco Malfoy type bully character, but evolves over the course of this season in a way that Draco never did throughout those Harry Potter movies. Really, the more I watch stuff like this in Lord of the Rings, the worse those Harry Potter movies look by comparison. There's even an episode that calls out how stupid Quidditch really is.
If catching that thing is so important, why do anything else? There's no reason to watch any of the other players. That's such a stupid rule!
You said it, sister. And Amity's relationship with Luce just might be my favorite thing about this show. This ship has no business being as emotionally compelling as it is. Their dance in the prom episode is genuinely one of the most beautiful things I have ever laid my eyes upon. I went into the show blind, and when I got to this specific moment, let me tell you, as an avid Yuri enjoyer, this shit was an out-of-body experience. This show also has two comic relief characters that are actually charming and don't come off as overtly annoying, which I think is an achievement to how good the writing in the show is. I also find it funny that it's mostly just Alex Hirsch talking to himself, Mickey 17 style. If you don't finish the Owl House willing to take a bullet for Hootie, then you are an idiot, and I don't like you. And also you probably think Bear's the good guy in Obsession. I don't make the rules. And yes, I should add that this show is also very funny.
Welcome to the Boo Boo Buddy Club, Hootie.
Finally, I get to be a part of something!
It balances humor and drama in a way that other popular media this decade has tried and failed. And even if some of the quips don't really stick the landing, they aren't as painfully unfunny compared to something like, I don't know, the new He-Man movie. It has more in common with like Dungeons and Dragons, if anything. I think if you've ever played a game of Dungeons and Dragons in your life, then you might get some of those vibes here. And I think it's because this show has something that is sadly missing in our popular culture right now. And that's sincerity. And the Owl House wears sincerity on its sleeves. I don't normally cry watching something, but that third season genuinely broke me after I finished it. I don't want to give too much away, but goddamn is it something else entirely. I look at this show the same way I look at Andor, in that I'm honestly surprised Disney would release these shows the way they are, even if their mature themes and the creators being open with their views do not exactly align with Disney's current regime. These two shows really are nuggets of gold in a landfill of slop. This is one of the better things Disney has put out this decade, so of course they cancelled it by its third season and screwed Dana over so bad she moved to the Digital Circus studio. This is why we can't have nice things anymore. And that's pretty much everything I've watched for the first half of the year. I don't know how else to end this video, so let's just say I hope to continue making more videos through this rebrand. Because yes, I do have lots of videos in the works, plus that MCU retrospective that I hope to finish within the year. I just need a little more time because those jobs aren't gonna apply themselves. Okay, bye!
Two guys on the screen.
Gay!